This video shows the making of a wooden safe puzzle that I made for our Easter egg hunt this year. Our Easter egg hunt usually involves solving many puzzles in the style of an escape room in order to find the hidden eggs. The safe is part of the big steampunk wall that I made up as part of the hunt this year. The safe consists of 4 dials that need to be set in order for it to be opened. To create the safe required 4 layers of ply, each having a slightly different function. I drew the 3 more complex layers out on graph paper and started the marking out for the build. The locking plate sits behind the main mounting board that also holds the base of the dials, allowing them to rotate. On top of that sits the locking plate that slides into notches in the dials. This required careful cutting on the jigsaw. I put masking tape on the back of the plywood to try to prevent too much tear out. The base of the circular dials was cut on the bandsaw using a circle cutting jig and fitted as a loose fit into the mounting holes in the base. Beautiful. The next layer of the dials needed small notches cut in them. This was done pretty quickly on the bandsaw. I'm using the bandsaw as a sort of file to square out the bottoms. This shot shows how the locking plate works by interacting with the dials. Then the base sections of the dials were glued together. A bit of spray paint on the locking plate and I could start on the top plate, which holds the dials in place and also has the handle mounted to it. I photoshopped the top plate design and printed it out full size. The top plate tested my patience as it needed a lot of holes cut in it with small circular corners. I drilled the corners before making the cuts. I only broke 1 blade in the whole process. Again, I used masking tape on the back to prevent tear out in the very ordinary quality plywood I was using. I wanted a steampunk aesthetic for the handle, so I spent some time making components that ended up holding a bit of black curtain rod. Then some spray paint on the various layers and it was time for assembly. I designed a textured surface in Photoshop that I stuck on the surface. I was going to just use this as the final texture and cut holes through the paper printout from my colour printer. It was going to have a coat of shellac to try to age the look a bit. It turned out to be a bit of a disaster as it involved lots of cleaning up of the paper edges and it ended up quite wrinkled. Eventually I took it off and opted for a spray paint finish. Locked. I embossed a bit of zinc flashing to make a label. I also put some embossed plates on the end of the handle and finished off the dials with some photoshopped scales, brass screws and push pins from Kmart. Then a lot of smaller brass screws to give it a steampunk look. Done. Part of the fun of the safe was that when opened, it only revealed a blank wall behind. The wall was designed to open later in the proceedings, but removing the safe door did release a micro switch that allowed other operations to take place on the bigger steampunk wall. All in all, it was a fun project to make, and the hunt participants had a lot of fun getting it to open.
Which one? Okay, the triangle's a 10.
22,
Which
one.
one? Star.